Okay, so over the years, SpongeBob has had a lot of different video games. I played quite a bit of them when I was a kid, but there's a lot that I missed out on that I just never got to play, and I want to relive my childhood, so I'm going to go back and play every single one, starting with the first one ever made, Legend of the Lost Spatula. This is the first official SpongeBob game to come out, and it was released in 2001 for the Game Boy Color. The game kicks off with a cutscene setting the story. Let us join SpongeBob. Look out, SpongeBob! SpongeBob uncovers a statue, and Mr. Krabs tells him it marks the entrance to the Dutchman's underworld, sending SpongeBob on a quest for the golden spatula to become Master Fry Cook. In the game, you can jump, crouch, and blow bubbles to attack. Whenever I was playing, I went to Sandy's Park, and I teleported to Bubble Bass, who just flew out of frame for some reason. I jumped down, and then there he was again. He belly bumped me, and my underwear fell off, which seems wrong. I spawned back in, and there he was again. I could not escape this guy. Everywhere I went, he was just there. It was actually really annoying. Eventually, I left Sandy's Park because I didn't even know what my objective was. The game is pretty much open world without any clear levels, so it's kind of hard to tell what you should be doing. I eventually went downtown, and my goal in that area was to find the anchor and recover the chest. I found out that there are multiple weapons you have, and right now I can choose between the bubble wand and the jellyfish net. Eventually I made it to Goo Lagoon, where I did a bunch of parkour, which is mainly what the game is, just a lot of parkour. In hindsight, it is a platformer though, so obviously it's just going to be parkour. Later on, I found the anchor from the objective and it led me to the chest. And the rest of the game is just a lot of the same thing. My favorite part of the game is probably this weird jump thing. But yeah, this game's just a really basic 2D platformer. There's not much else to say. Also, I'm going to be rating every single one of these games to find out which one is the best one, and overall, I'm going to give the first one 33 globs. The next game, Supersponge, released only a few months later for the PlayStation. Graphically, this game is a huge upgrade. We also have voiceovers, so this is a huge step up from The Legend of the Lost Spatula.
Here we are at Bikini Bottom.
The premise of this one is that it's Patrick's birthday, and SpongeBob is trying to find the best birthday present for him. SpongeBob goes over to Shady Shoals to see if Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy would give him a signed photo of them for Patrick's birthday, and they agree, as long as SpongeBob gets them some peanut butter, tomatoes, and jelly. So the quest begins. As far as the actual gameplay goes, it's a lot like the last one in that it's just you going through the map, doing quite a bit of parkour, fighting just a few enemies along the way. I do prefer this one over the last one though, because it's a bit more level based and not completely open world, so it's just kind of easier to know what objective you should be doing, which I like. The attacking mechanic is pretty funny. You use your net to catch a jellyfish, then you throw it at enemies. Apart from that, you can jump, and yeah, that's about it. Oh yeah, and you can also do this. Whatever that is. Again, it's just another pretty basic 2D platformer with honestly a really boring premise. 42 globs. Operation Krabby Patty. This one is weird.
You know what this means, Patrick?
Free rides!
It's a PC exclusive and the first game that's not a side-scroller platformer. Yay! Because it's a point-and-click game. Boo! It starts off with one of the most uncomfortable cutscenes I've seen in my entire life. It's just a bunch of random clips thrown together that make no sense. The important thing that I gathered from it is that Plankton has built a replica of Mr. Krabs, and there's some little Plankton-sized dudes stealing a bunch of Krabby Patties. So I guess that's the plot of the game. Okay, now that that's over, time for the actual gameplay. You start off in SpongeBob's house, which is the main menu, and it's actually pretty cool for main menu. Each object in his room is a different button in the menu, and once you click the right side, and definitely not the wrong side, because that's surprisingly an option, you can start the actual game, which is basically 5 different minigames tied into one game. Every minigame comes with an equally uncomfortable cutscene as the first one. They all include some of the weirdest bits that are actually kind of funny, and for some reason a lot of them are really meta.
Can you please draw the elevator in the correct location?
In the first one, Plankton reveals his replica of Mr. Krabs, powered by all these sea ants. In the first minigame, you control Robot Mr. Krabs, and you have to collect all the Krabby Patty ingredients before the time runs out. You have to complete 4 stages of it, and it's honestly really boring. You just go around the map collecting the ingredients, and that's basically it. It was surprisingly difficult though. Like, I spent an embarrassing amount of time beating this level. The other levels are pretty similar. In level 2, you ride around in a boat collecting these colored checkpoints before the time runs out. Then in level 3, you have to go around collecting cheese on these fish hooks. Level 4, you just shoot all the jellyfish with a net gun before the time runs out. but not before watching a cutscene with the creepiest animation style, of course. Honestly, these cutscenes are the most interesting thing in the game. The rest is just bland, repetitive gameplay that gets really old fast. Oh, and in case you thought the final level would be a crazy awesome mission with incredible gameplay, it's not. You just have to shoot a bunch of enemies to keep them from stealing your ship. 37 globs for this one. Employee of the Month. Another point and click game. However, this one is actually much better. I'm not saying it's amazing, but it's a whole lot better than Operation Krabby Patty. Instead of 5 different minigames, the game has 5 chapters that all follow the same storyline, which is that SpongeBob got named Employee of the Year, and as a reward, Mr. Krabs gave him tickets to Neptune's Paradise theme park. The only problem is he doesn't have a ride there, so you have to go to the bus stop to catch a ride. Then you find out that you don't have any bus tokens.
No, SpongeBob, I don't have any. What are we gonna do?
So Patrick tells you to go find buried treasure at Goo Lagoon. At Goo Lagoon, you find Larry, who has a shovel to dig up treasure, and you need to distract him and take it. So you go to Grandma's house for a pie, and she says she needs urchin chips. You go to Bargain Mart to pick up some and find naked crabs in the middle of the store, which is pretty awesome. You need money to buy the chips though, so you have to watch the cart cashier's boat. Once you give Grandma the chips, she gives you the pie, which you use to distract Larry and steal the shovel. Now that you have the shovel, you dig up the treasure full of bus tokens. So you head back to the bus stop, but apparently the bus driver won't drive anywhere because of the weather. So you get the idea. It's just a lot of running back and forth around the map, talking to characters and finding different things to help you complete the main goal. It's the exact same format for all 5 chapters, and overall the gameplay is really boring and just tedious, but it does have some pretty funny dialogue.
You can talk to me.
Look, no offense, little guy, but I'd rather watch paint dry.
There's paint drying. Where? I want to see.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, this game is so much better than Operation Krabby Patty, but still not very fun if you're over the age of 9. Which I guess makes sense, because it's probably meant for children. So, I'll get this one 45 globs. Revenge of the Flying Dutchman. One thing I've noticed playing these older games is how spoiled we are nowadays to have super fast, basically instant loading screens. Like, loading screens suck, and there's a lot of them in this game. This one is the first of many 3D platformers, which is what would kind of become the standard of a good SpongeBob game going forward. In the game, you get to change into different outfits that allow you to do different things in the game. However, most of the time, you end up just having to use the jellyfish outfit. The gameplay certainly isn't riveting or revolutionary. You basically just go around collecting things or doing really boring tasks. I just wish you were able to fight a lot more enemies in this one. Like, for about an hour and a half, I was just delivering Krabby Patties to customers. There are some fun mechanics in the game though, like toward the end, you get to launch yourself in a cannon to the Flying Dutchman ship. Here you have to save Squidward, Patrick, Gary, Mr. Krabs, who you just chunk into the boat. Then the same thing happens to Sandy. Once everyone is saved, it's then time for the boss fight against the Flying Dutchman, which you would think would be pretty awesome because it's the Flying Dutchman and it's a boss fight, but the boss fight sucks. I'm terrible at video games and I literally beat it in 2.5 minutes. It's incredibly easy, and it's mainly just a lot of running away from the Dutchman while he does his same wave of attacks, then attacking him like twice before he dies. This game does have some pretty good cutscenes, but it's kind of hard to compete in that realm with the last 2 games. Which are just peak SpongeBob cutscenes. There's a narrator in the game, which is pretty funny.
Don't you think your little friend Gary would like to play some fetch?
It gets some bonus points in that regard. Overall, not even close to being the best, but still the best one so far by a landslide. Also, this is the first of all these games that I actually played as a kid, so it also gets nostalgia points. 71 globs. Okay, you might be thinking, wait, hey, there's a Game Boy Advance version of Revenge of the Flying Dutchman and Supersponge, and hey, there's also a DS version of Atlantis SquarePantis. Yeah, there's a few console games that have different versions for different systems, and guess what? I'm not playing them. The console versions are so much better, and so I'm just not going to play a worse version. Yeah, cry about it. Okay, don't actually cry, I'm sorry. Anyway, let's go to the next game. Battle for Bikini Bottom. This game is timeless. Anytime someone mentions a SpongeBob video game, there's a 99% chance that they're referring to this one, and it's for good reason. It's a fantastic game. It brings back so many memories, and I'm sure all you guys watching, this one is probably the game that gives you the most nostalgia. The music is so good, and every track sounds like it came straight from the show. The sound effects in this game are perfect, from the footsteps, to the tiptoes, to jumping, to the shiny, to this guy getting beat by a hammer made of ham. It's all just actually amazing. The game also just captures the atmosphere of SpongeBob so well, no matter what area you're in. Jellyfish Fields, Rock Bottom, Goo Lagoon. It all looks so good. And the map is huge. Like, they have pretty much every area from the show. In the game, there are these things called shiny, these little flowers scattered throughout the game. You have to collect them to unlock certain doors and stuff, and you can also use them to buy golden spatulas from Mr. Krabs. Speaking of the spatulas, you use them to unlock different areas. But buying these spatulas from Mr. Krabs isn't the only way you can collect them. You can also get them after completing certain missions, find them hiding around the map, or exchange them with Patrick for 10 socks. Okay, I will say one of the only negatives I have about this game are the voice lines. They're not bad, apart from Mr. Krabs.
But because you're gullible, I'm gonna help you out. And of course, make a small profit in return.
They just get really old because I've heard this about a million times.
Sometimes pushing a single button is the most satisfying. Push, 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 push.
And at this point, it makes me want to... Some of the dialogue in this game is pretty good though. Like, some parts I actually laughed out loud at.
Do I look like I'm okay?
Well, your nose does look pretty big. I mean, bigger than usual because it's usually pretty big. And oh my gosh, you're bald!
One of the main things that this game did right was the combat. Like, I just love the enemies. There's a lot of variety and they're actually fun to fight. And you can't just run past them. You actually have to fight them because you're going to get overrun by them until you destroy the machine that spawns them in. The actual storyline and missions are pretty funny too. Like, the first boss fight is defeating the king jellyfish, and the reason you have to do it is so you can collect its jelly to rub all over Squidward.
I'll bring back that king jellyfish jelly for you to rub all over yourself.
The main storyline or premise of the game is Plankton creates an army of robots to help him steal the secret formula, and they turn against him because he accidentally set them to don't obey, which seems like something that would actually happen in a SpongeBob episode. Oh yeah, one really cool feature that I always loved as a kid were these boxes. They're placed in just about every level at the start and the end, so once you reach the end of an area, the two will link together and you can teleport between them. I love how much variety the game has. One of my favorite levels is this mountain where you can tongue down. It's so fun. And with the box teleporter, you can just go back down it again if you missed anything. Also, it's worth mentioning, you can switch between different characters that have different abilities to help you with certain areas. Sandy's probably my favorite. She can swing from these Texas balls, which is pretty awesome. And she can also use her lasso to glide really far or tie up enemies. Patrick's character is really funny though, because he can pick up big objects like a watermelon and throw them. And his attack is just belly bumping enemies. I already said this, but there's so many iconic locations for the game. There's even Shady Shoals where you get to bully a bunch of old people, and then you get to go into the mermaid lair. They even have the invisible boatmobile. It is awesome sauce. There's so many iconic things and locations in this game, and I think that's just what makes it so special. So I'm gonna give this one 95 globs. It's gonna be really hard to beat that. Made by the same developers as Battle for Bikini Bottom, the next game is the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the video game. Fun fact, this game actually somehow came out before the movie. I don't really know why they would do that because I feel like it just spoils the movie. Like, the game literally starts off with a bunch of screenshots from the actual movie, then it has a cutscene recreation of the first scene. Right off the bat though, this game looks super similar to Bikini Bottom, which makes sense because it's the same developers. The first mission is inside Goofy Goobers, where you go around killing all the peanut guys, and these ones specifically have the worst sound effect ever. It makes me want to gouge my ears out. As far as the actual combat goes, it feels really similar to Battle for Bikini Bottom. It's good, it's fun, I like it. The main feature I love in this game that Battle for Bikini Bottom doesn't have is the upgrade point system. You have to collect a certain amount of these dumbbells, which give you upgrade points that you can use to upgrade your abilities and unlock new ones, so it actually gives you a reason to collect these collectibles. You get to play as both Patrick and SpongeBob in this one, and my favorite ability Patrick has is he can swing on stuff with his tongue, which is pretty hilarious. He can also pick up and throw stuff just like in Battle for Bikini Bottom. Him and SpongeBob also have some other abilities that are the same as Battle for Bikini Bottom, and some that are essentially the same, but reskinned to look a little different. The main thing I hate about this game though is the fact that so many times you have to replay levels to get enough tokens to progress in the game. It's just super frustrating and really annoying. The gameplay does make up for this drawback though. It has a lot of variety. It's got combat, puzzles, time trials, It's a lot of fun, and the driving levels especially, I really enjoyed. Except this sliding one, which made me want to blow my brains out. I honestly don't see how this is a kid's game because it is so hard to beat it in time. Overall, this is a really solid game and a great follow-up to Battle for Bikini Bottom. But the main thing I feel that the former one did a lot better was the atmosphere of the game. Considering how iconic the SpongeBob movie is, I just feel like it could have been done a lot better. I don't really know how to describe it. I can't complain too much though because we did get this. Incredible. This one gets 86 globs. The next game, SpongeBob Typing. Yes, this is a real game, and yes, I played it.
Type in your name, G-O-B-E-T.
The game actually has cutscenes and a storyline, which is really surprising. Like, super long, too. The beginning cutscene is 3.5 minutes, which is kind of crazy for a typing game. But yeah, it is just a typing game. I don't know what you expected. I really just wasted 15 minutes of my life on this game. This game gets 18 globs, and that's only because of the cutscenes. The next game that got released was SpongeBob's Krusty Krab Adventures, but it's for the Fisher price, which I don't have, so I can't play it. There's a few games like this that I literally just don't have any way of playing. The Fry Cook games Plug and Play, SpongeBob SquarePants Smart Cycle for the Fisher Price Smart Cycle. So yeah, I just wanted to let y'all know, sorry for the letdown. Now to the next game. Lights, Camera, Pants. Best name out of all of these games, by the way. This one is a multiplayer mini game, kind of like Mario Party, except SpongeBob. The only bad thing is I don't have anyone to play with. I ended up just playing with the computer. I chose Squidward as my character because he's the most glob-like, and started playing through the tears I shed from being alone. The mini games in Lights, Camera, Pants are surprisingly really good. Some games are 2v2, like this one where you scrape some barnacles, and this one where you work together to push items to the kitchen. The other games are free-for-all. Some of my favorites are this one where you push each other off this island, and also this one, for obvious reasons. In between the mini games are some cutscenes, which are pretty decent. Okay, who am I kidding? They're awesome.
Thank you for dining at the Krusty Krab!
Oh, yes, thanks.
I feel like that's the one thing that every SpongeBob game has in common. All the cutscenes are hilarious, and no matter how terrifying, they always seem to get them right. I'm not sure if that's a popular opinion, but I love them. That's the only thing in between the minigames though. There's no game board like in Mario Party. It's just back-to-back minigames, which is cool, but I would have liked to see something else to give a little break in between the games. Overall though, this one is really fun, and I actually enjoyed it a lot, even though I was just playing with a computer. Although I'm sure it would be a lot more fun playing with friends. It's a nice refresher from all the single-player platformers, and this one is really high on my list. I give it 85 globs. 92 if I had friends to play with. The Yellow Avenger. I couldn't find any way to play on the PSP version, so I had to play the DS one, and it sucked. I didn't even get nearly close to finishing it. It was just so boring. It's just completing all these super boring quests. Like, SpongeBob has superpowers. That's kind of the whole premise of the game, and yet there's hardly any combat. It's just going throughout the map, picking stuff up, bringing it to other places. It's just a really boring game. And we didn't even have voice lines with the cutscenes. There's just this task list that it seems like it's infinite. I don't know, I don't really have anything to say. I just did not like playing this game at all. It was horrible. Sorry if this was like your favorite game or something when you were a kid. It gets, I'll give it 32 globs. Creature from the Krusty Krab. This game is a fever dream. Literally, that's the premise of the game. Each level takes place in either SpongeBob, Patrick, or Plankton's dreams. It's insanely chaotic and really weird, and I love it. In SpongeBob's dream, you start off racing in a hot rod, then you have to find your license that keeps running away. A bit later, Patrick shows up, and it's horrifying. There is way too many cutscenes though. Seriously, there's a cutscene for every little thing, and it gets super annoying. I've also heard the same voice lines a million times. They're also just really annoying voice lines.
Look at me go, SpongeBob!
I've never noticed there was a racetrack right in my front yard. There's a racetrack right in my front yard.
But if you can get over that and all the cutscenes, then this game is actually really enjoyable. It's so goofy, it doesn't take itself seriously at all, and I love it. So many times SpongeBob will just randomly dance for no reason. It's great. The combat is fun, but it is really easy. SpongeBob's main attack are these squiggle arms, and they go crazy. So SpongeBob's level is him racing and trying to find his boating license. In Patrick's, he's a superhero known as Starfish Man, who has to defeat dreaded Patrick. And every character in his dream is him. In Plankton's dream, he zaps a leftover Krabby Patty crumb, which causes it to mutate into a giant patty that tries to eat him. I really like the premise of this game. Playing as the characters in their dreams is such a cool concept, and in each chapter it's a different dream. It's a bit off-putting though, switching from one chapter to another, because there's just so many different art styles, but I really like it. As far as the gameplay goes, it could be better. It feels slightly too easy, but it's fun. I feel like it's a really easy game to just lay back and enjoy, and for that reason, I think for me it slightly takes the edge over the movie game, so 89 globs. Atlantis SquarePantis. This one, like Lice Camera Pants, is another collection of minigames based on the episode from season 5, except unlike Lice Camera Pants, the main story is single player only. I don't know why they would do that. I actually do like that they went the route of minigames though, because there's just an exhausting amount of 3D platformers. However, I think it could have been done much better. Most of the minigames are fun for a bit, but they get pretty boring and old fast. I will say there's a lot of variety though. There's puzzles, rail shooters, 2 where you get to drive a tank, and rhythm games, which are the worst ones by far. Even though it took me forever to beat, my favorite one was probably this one. You get to control both SpongeBob and Patrick and help each other get across this cave. As Patrick, you get to just chunk SpongeBob to get him to the other side of gaps, which is really funny. This one is a pretty relaxing puzzle mission, and I think that's why it's my favorite. Another funny part of the game is in this one level, you get to go around a museum taking pictures, and you just get to assault anyone that gets in your way. It's awesome. The cutscenes in this game are great, and it has some funny dialogue, but with the mediocre gameplay, I'm giving this one 66 globs. Lice Camera Pants just has a way better minigame collection. Underpants Slam. This game I honestly thought would be one of my favorites since the name is so good, but after playing, I realized that that's just not the case. This game is so dumb. Literally the entire game is just collecting 99 underpants. No, like that's actually it. You just go around the map collecting underwear until you collect all 99, then the level is complete. And that's not like just one level in the game. That is the entire game. The only difference is a new map each level. There's 2 different game modes though, time trial and quest mode. Both are equally trash. It's just insane to me that the entire game is centered around just collecting items, which isn't even fun. I really wasted $10 in this game. 19 globs. SpongeBob Drawn to Life. This game is a sort of a spin-off of another DS game called Drawn to Life, and this is the SpongeBob edition of it. The original game is a platformer where you can use the DS stylus to draw different items and weapons to bring into your world in the game. It's a little gimmicky, but overall I still think it's a pretty cool concept. I haven't played the original, but from what I can tell, the SpongeBob game isn't too different from it. You start off by drawing your own character, which is pretty cool. So I drew this a little Globert, and Patrick was flipping out. This game is about Doodlebob, which is fitting and really cool because he's like one of the most iconic characters in the show. Doodlebob's army captures SpongeBob, so in the game you have to save him. It's pretty cool getting to control your own character that you created. I just wish I had better art skills. Most of the gameplay is pretty generic platformer stuff, but there is some DS specific things that are pretty cool. There's this goo over the map in some areas that you have to rub off with a stylus. There's some enemies that you get to draw your own version of. Then they become your allies. Like I turned this slug into something a little more like a glob. Once you free SpongeBob from his cage like a zoo animal, he turns into this key that will follow you around, and you can use him to draw a box around your character to protect you, which is a really weird mechanic, but still cool that you get to use stylus for it. The rest of the game is just pretty regular, with different little things you can draw on the map, like platforms to jump on or different enemy types. Overall, it's a decent platformer with a really unique mechanic that sets it apart from all the other ones. It gets 57 globs for me, but I'm sure someone who really enjoys drawing would rank it a lot higher. Beach Party Cook-Off. This one is basically a cooking simulator. The intro cutscene is pretty funny. The premise in this game is that the Krusty Krab and the Chum Bucket are having a cook-off to decide who gets to serve food for this beach party. The Krusty Krab needs more workers to pull it off and steals all of Plankton's cousins who are working for them as slaves. So Mr. Krabs agrees to pay them for half a quarter of minimum wage so that they can work for him. In the game, you play the role of Plankton's cousins while SpongeBob teaches you how to cook. And then for some reason, Patrick's just there too. Don't ask me why. Even Sandy is there at one point, just for no reason. Like, they're not cooks. The goal of the game is to just complete all these levels, making as much money as possible. There's a lot of games like this you've probably seen in the App Store, so it's not exactly original. And even though it's SpongeBob themed, it's still really boring. It's also kind of hard, surprisingly. I chose medium difficulty and I was really struggling on some of the tasks. But yeah, this game was definitely not my cup of tea, and for that reason it gets 24 globs. SpongeBob's Truth or Square. This one I feel like is incredibly underrated. at least for me because I've never heard of it until now. It's loosely based on the episode from season 6 about the Krusty Krab's 77th anniversary. SpongeBob needs to find the Krabby Patty formula, but he can't remember where he put it. So he uses Plankton's memory machine to retrace the happiest moments of his life, because he can't remember anything when he's sad. The structure of the game is very linear. You play as SpongeBob and you go up to different characters at the party and they remind you of certain events that made SpongeBob happy. You get teleported to that memory, which is the level. After you beat the level, you're back at the party ready to do it again. Although it's pretty basic, I actually like the structure because it's different than the usual open world-ish structure that most of the SpongeBob platformers have. As far as the gameplay, I love it. The 3 main attacks you have are the Spatula Slam, which slams the spatula on the enemy's heads. The Spin Slap, which lets you spin like a Beyblade, damaging anyone in your path. And the Cannon Shot, which you can use to shoot balls at people. Water balls. I feel like I should clarify that. All of his attacks are really fun to use on the enemies. I feel like it's probably a bit too easy though, especially with the power-ups that you can collect. There's 4 of them and every single one of them are actually insane. The dumbbell is the weakest one, but also the one you get to use the most. It turns you into a muscled up version of SpongeBob, which allows you to do twice the amount of damage to enemies. I say it's the weakest one, but it's insanely overpowered because it doesn't have a timer like the other abilities. It stays active until you take damage, so theoretically you could use it forever if you never get hit. The next one is the hammer, which turns SpongeBob into a hammer that Patrick uses to just bash anything in his way. It's nuts. The third one is the karate glove, which turns SpongeBob into a karate glove that Sandy wears while spinning around, just wrecking everything you come in contact with. And the last one is the music note, which spawns in Squidward and turns SpongeBob into a clarinet that he uses to spray water balloons everywhere. Oh, there's also a rainbow power-up that makes SpongeBob indestructible. It's basically the star from Mario Kart. Each one of these abilities is very fun to use, and since I'm so bad at games, that's kind of the reason why I like it, because it's just easy. Also, I do love the variety of the maps that the game has. There's Jellyfish Fields, which is pretty standard in SpongeBob games for some reason, but also Rock Bottom, Kelp Forest. I mean, they even have the Salty Spittoon.
Welcome to the Salty Spittoon. How tough are you?
All these maps look really good too, and they capture SpongeBob's environment really well, like in Battle for Bikini Bottom. And there's a lot of cool references to the show, like the SpongeBob episode, and the episode where Squidward eats like 1,000,000 Krabby Patties. You get to fight a robot version of that, and you even get to do this, which is awesome. Oh, and in the loading screens, you get to do some SpongeBob trivia while you wait. I kind of like that, apart from just staring at a blank loading screen. There's just a lot I like about this game, so I'm going to give this one 90 globs. And I never played this one as a kid, so that's really saying something. SpongeBob's Boating Bash. This one is a SpongeBob racing game. Well, okay, not really racing. It's basically bumper cars. The main game mode is called Destruction. Your goal is to smash each other's boats to see who collects the most fallen parts. I won't lie, I played maybe 3 rounds of this game and I just could not get into it. It's just you going around the track, crashing your boat into other boats over and over again. It was pretty boring. Maybe it would be fun with friends, but I didn't enjoy this one at all. It does have some voice lines that are pretty funny.
Ha! I just knocked you good.
But you could probably guess they're extremely repetitive and they get old fast. 50 globs. SpongeBob SquigglePants. This game is, I don't even know what this game is. It's for the U-Draw on the Wii. So yeah, I thought it would be like just a drawing game, like Drawn to Life, but it's really not. I mean, there's a couple drawing parts in it, but mainly it's just a bunch of really weird mini games that use the stylus with. I'm not gonna lie though, I was kind of having fun with it for a bit, but it's not very fun for long. I feel like it'd be pretty fun as a multiplayer game, but it's not. So yeah, 33 globs. SpongeBob and the Clash of Triton. This game is terrible. That's honestly all I need to say, and we could just move on to the next game. It's a PC exclusive, which explains why it's this bad. All it is just you going through each level, destroying buildings as a giant SpongeBob or Patrick, while avoiding these little mutant Krabby Patties. You can use smiting points to upgrade your speed, strength, jump, and stuff like that, and you get to unlock certain abilities as you play. But it's just the same thing over and over, and it's so bad. Not a fun game. 21 globs. Surf and Skate Road Trip. This is a game for the Xbox 360 Kinect, And I actually kind of like the Kinect. I think it's pretty fun when it works, which isn't very often. And this game is a great showcase of how inaccurate the Kinect really is. So many times it just doesn't let you do what you want. And not only during the actual gameplay, but just navigating the menus is so frustrating. Like, you spend more time trying to get to the game than actually playing it. And once you finally do, you find out that it's incredibly boring and repetitive. The maps all look the same. They all have a super boring and forgettable environment. I really don't have anything positive to say about this game, to be honest. It would probably be more fun if it was played with the controller, but even then, it would still suck. It's like they took every possible way to make a game frustrating and boring and just ran with it. 19 globs. Plankton's Robotic Revenge. The plot of Plankton's Robotic Revenge is honestly about as thrilling as a dentist appointment. Essentially, Plankton, who controls a giant robot, steals the safe with the Krabby Patty formula in it, so SpongeBob and the gang have to find the keys to the safe before Plankton does. Because, I guess he just can't bash it open with his giant fists for some reason. Apart from this bland premise, whenever I started playing, I thought this one actually might be a winner because it's pretty unique as it's a shooter rather than just yet another platformer. But my hopes were quickly crushed as I realized that all the levels stayed the same, they're extremely repetitive, and it's just not all that fun after 15 minutes of playing. One redeeming quality that the game has is all the characters you get to use. It's nice hearing voice lines from SpongeBob, Patrick of course, but also Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and Squidward especially.
Another one bites the dust.
The death animations are also pretty funny, so that's a plus, I guess. Also, there's a couple dropper sections in the game that are a nice break from the monotonous shooting gameplay, and the droppers are actually surprisingly hard.
That hurt.
The camera does a pretty good job of following you around because you can't control it yourself, which can be pretty annoying. But I think the reason for that is because it has 4-player co-op, which is the one thing that keeps this game from being absolute complete garbage. Because I'm sure playing with 3 other people would actually make this game pretty fun, except unfortunately I'll probably never find out. So yeah, this game had potential but didn't quite deliver. I'll give this one 52 globs. Based on the movie Sponge Out of Water, the next game is SpongeBob Heropants. The game starts off looking really good, like the cutscenes are super high quality. It makes it seem like it's going to be a really good game. Except honestly, it just feels like a sequel to Plankton's Robotic Revenge, because it's basically a carbon copy. Yeah, it's a genius idea. Let's take an already bland, repetitive game and give it a sequel. The combat is just spamming your attack button and slapping enemies back and forth, while occasionally throwing patties at them. The superhero ability you'd think would be good since that's kind of the whole thing, like they're superheroes, but all it does is basically just make you move and jump faster and your attack is like slightly better. The environments are super bland, every level looks the same visually, and most of it is just ripped straight out of Plankton's Robotic Revenge. Like, the upgrading mechanics are all the same, you can't move the camera, there's a bunch of glitches too. Like, this game just feels so rushed and lazy. You can definitely tell that it's a quick cash grab. It's just a bad game. 42 globs. Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Released 17 years after the original, the SpongeBob franchise decided to bring back some of its player base with a bit of nostalgia. And it's safe to say that it worked. This game is a complete remake of the original Battle for Bikini Bottom, but with updated graphics made for a better console. I only have good things to say about this game. It's literally just the original, but better. Visually, it looks amazing, but yeah, as far as gameplay, it's just the same game, so my rating is going to stay the same as well. I guess I could give it an extra point though for the better looking graphics. 96 globs. The Cosmic Shake. It was made by the same developers as Rehydrated, and they did a phenomenal job. This game is the perfect successor to Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. It uses the same familiar style of gameplay as Battle for Bikini Bottom, but there isn't a bunch of new elements that set it apart. The plot of the game is SpongeBob and Patrick go to this magic wizard lady and get some wishing soap. They make a bunch of wishes with it, and it tears apart their reality and gets all ooey gooey. Also, it turns out that one of the wishes Patrick made was to turn himself into a balloon. So the whole game he's just a balloon, which is pretty funny. It also means that the only character that you can use is SpongeBob. But honestly, that's fine because there's a lot of different abilities SpongeBob has in this game that it makes up for not being able to use any other characters. Basically, the whole game, you're traveling through alternate realities of the SpongeBob universe to go save everyone who got thrown into these different dimensions. It's a really cool concept because you get to play through so many unique levels. Like, there's a Wild West version of Jellyfish Fields, a Halloween Rock Bottom, prehistoric kelp forest. All these levels look so cool, and they're different from every other SpongeBob game. These are all familiar places, but they all have a unique twist on them, and that's why the levels are so good. As for the gameplay, it's great. It feels really similar to Battle for Bikini Bottom, but honestly, I think it might be better. Most of the moves are taken from the other games, but with a twist. Like the pizza glider, which is the equivalent of Sandy's lasso, and then the basic spin move is the same as Battle for Bikini Bottom, as well as the butt bounce thing. There's also seahorses you can ride, which is really fun. There's unicycling. You get to shoot yourself with slingshots. The gameplay is really fun and has a lot of variety. The enemies are really good too, like they're basically all just jelly dudes, and there's a bunch of different types of them. It's really fun combat, a little on the easy side, but that's kind of how all the SpongeBob games are. The boss fights all feel really good, and my goodness, there's so many references to the show, it's insane. You get to play as SpongeGar in one of the levels, which is awesome, and the pizza glider that you get to use is from
Krusty Krab pizza is the pizza.
as well as about a million other smaller references sprinkled throughout the game. This game is honestly just perfect. The sounds are really good, the levels are great. They honestly couldn't have done a better follow-up to Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Like, they knocked it out of the park. And for me, I think it tops Battle for Bikini Bottom. It hits that feeling of nostalgia because of the similarities from the 20-year-old game, while still being something completely fresh, innovative, and new. 99 globs. But there's still one more game that came out since then that could possibly top Cosmic Shake for 100 globs as the best SpongeBob game ever. Krusty Cook-Off. This is a mobile game that was ported to the Nintendo Switch, but I don't have the Switch, so I played the mobile version. It's basically the same though. It's the most unoriginal SpongeBob game on this list. It's literally just like any of those fast-paced restaurant simulators with a little bit of SpongeBob sprinkled on top. Except for some reason, like, you're not even cooking Krabby Patties, which would be the obvious thing to do. It's pancakes. I don't really know why. Pretty dumb if you ask me. But yeah, I did not like this game. There's just nothing unique about it. I'd say it's slightly better than Beach Party Cook-Off, 30 globs. And that is every SpongeBob game ever.